Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's Astrological Report for September 23 through September 29 of 2025. So this week we are waxing forward from the solar eclipse new moon. The moon is symbolically planting seeds of intentions for the long-term future for the world this next couple days. The moon will be waxing through the rest of Libra, all through Scorpio, all through Sagittarius, and ingressing Capricorn by next Monday, reaching the first quarter moon phase where the moon squares the sun, and that's what we call the crisis in action phase by next week. But in the meantime, we do have some major aspects taking place, especially this next couple days, and that's because the sun now has made this change of season. We're adjusting to a lot of energetic changes, especially this next couple days. So the sun is on one of the four cardinal points, which is the world points, and that shows that the focus has changed to try to be more intellectual and communicative and objective about things. Sun in Libra is showing that there's a new focus from this point forward about relationships. So on personal individual levels, that can show there's more of a focus on one-on-one connections with people, trying to be more compromising and diplomatic. And Libra is all about the scales, trying to weigh things out. So that can be in different contexts. We can try to weigh things out within relationships, but we can also just be looking at our life in more of an objective way and trying to find a better balance with how we're looking and thinking about things from this point forward. But this is also on a global level. This is going to show that this is, major dynamics or deals happening or negotiations between nations, and just important world developments are most likely happening. There's a couple red flags for the week ahead, and one of them is actually today. The sun is making all these aspects to the outer planets, but it's also opposite Neptune. So everything about Neptune is really being energized today and tomorrow. And so that shows that Neptune is at its brightest point of the year with the sun in opposition. And Neptune is at 0 degrees on the world point too. So this is definitely talking about things on a world level. And that's kind of showing that everything about Neptune is in focus, but it can also show that there can be some distortions to the focus this next couple of days, some distortions to reality. And basically, Neptune is a projection energy. So there could be some big projections taking place. Neptune is god of the sea. And so this is also likely energizing weather, storms, and water events for certain places around the world. I'm pretty sure there's some big storms happening that are going to be in focus here. And it's also, the planet plus with Saturn and Pisces here. This deals with a lot of scandals and conspiracies on the world level that are in focus. But you have to be very careful of course, believing everything you hear, because there are a lot of projections. And this is definitely on the global level, but it can be in personal relationships as well. Be a little more cautious of what's being projected out there, because there's likely some distortions on some levels. And not every single thing is distorted, but that's the trick, is knowing which is what, So just be a little mindful of that. And also, I would think that with Neptune, for some people, this can be still like a draining of energy. The sun has still been opposing Saturn, now opposing Neptune. So some people could still feel pretty tired. Neptune is also the planet of retreat. Some people might want to feel like retreating, and being in their own world. And it really is this opposition between self and others on a lot of different levels here. Now, it's not all bad. There's openings and new possibilities that are being connected here, because the sun is trine Pluto and trine Uranus. So we see this grand trine / kite. And this minor grand trine has already been in place for the last few months, talking about the global changes taking place. And now the sun is connecting to all of these things. So there is alignments in place that show world development and life moving forward in new ways from this point. Now, we do have this other change that's just happened with Mars and Scorpio. This is a little bit of one of the red flags I see for the week here, because Mars is now in its home sign. It's in its own rulership, so it's separate from everything else. So, for example, I'll just go through the rulerships and we'll look at the final dispositor of who's in charge and what's the greatest influence going on in the sky right now. And it really all comes back to Venus and Mercury, because the North Node in Saturn and Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter in Cancer is ruled by the Moon. The Moon in Libra right now is being ruled by Venus, and Venus in Virgo is being ruled by Mercury in Libra, and Mercury in Libra is being ruled by Venus in Virgo. So that's a mutual reception that's in place between Mercury and Venus. So those are the final dispositors of a lot of what's happening for almost everything, including Pluto. Pluto in Aquarius, ruled by Saturn, so it comes right back around. However, now that Mars is in Scorpio, its own sign, it doesn't go anywhere else because it's ruling itself. But now Mars is actually in charge of Neptune and Chiron. So that's a little problematic, I would think, for any kind of Neptunian events that will be taking place this next couple of days. Because again, even the storms or some of the distortions or projections or scandals or whatever's happening comes right back to this Mars in Scorpio, a very deep position, very deep and private, and things that are more under the surface. But Mars is also building up to this square with Pluto. And the thing about this is that once the moon gets into Scorpio, which is going to be starting tomorrow, the moon is going to make a perfect conjunction with Mars right as they're both squaring Pluto perfectly. That is very rare, and I'll talk more about that as I'm going through the daily chart. But when moon is in Scorpio, it'll be ruled by Mars. So there's going to be this like separate vibe going on, different from the main dispositors of Mercury and Venus, which is the more positive side. So this is definitely an issue that's going to be peaking by tomorrow on September 24. It is a red flag day. You're going to have to be very cautious. There's most likely going to be significant events taking place, but we'll analyze it a little better when I get to the daily chart there. But yeah, that does look concerning this week. And the moon is already getting close. It's approaching that, so things are going to start to change. I think there's a lot of intensity. There's a lot of inconjunctions taking place this next 2 days, which are aspects of irritation and adjustment. So I think the next couple of days are probably the most difficult. And then there's a few moments here throughout the week that are challenging. And then perhaps next Monday for the first quarter moon as well. So, with all that said, this Mercury-Venus is helpful with this mutual reception. It makes Venus a lot stronger. I mentioned this last week, how, Venus is considered debilitated in Virgo, but with this mutual reception, it's said to cancel out that debilitation. And the market has been holding up. Now, Venus went through a lot of changes during the weekend, but the market today so far, looking at the SPY, an ETF from the S&P 500, it's pretty much flat right now, but it's still been holding up pretty good. And I think it's because, again, this debilitation is being canceled out. But I think also as Venus gets closer and closer to the South Node, we're going to start to see some adjustments and changes in values and markets coming up. But the market just doesn't want to go down. It's at all-time highs right now. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I think there's likely to be some adjustments as we come into later September and into October. We'll see, though. But it's also just helpful for looking at things in more practical ways. Again, it's almost like having Mercury exalted in Virgo and Venus in its home sign of Libra with this mutual reception. And so we're able just to be more objective, but also more analytical and practical about things at the same time and try to weigh things out, especially as time goes on and the sun gets past this opposition with Neptune and these aspects to the outer planets, and we make this adjustment to this new focus and this new season, and probably even more when the moon gets past this Mars conjunction. So that's what I'm seeing here, and I do think that the biggest issue of this week is the moon conjunct Mars square Pluto at the same time. So it's not just Mars square Pluto. The moon right there brings it down to a lower level. It's just a matter of, is it going to manifest? Because Scorpio is everything private and deep and hidden that's under the surface. And Pluto in Aquarius is being ruled by Saturn in Pisces, which is also behind the scenes in a private area. So there's a lot that could be taking place under the surface as well. I do think that there is a strong potential that it will manifest as something very visible on the world level here, though. And probably storms are a part of that, but there's other things that could happen as well. All right, so with that, I'm going to start going through the chart day by day. And let's start here on Tuesday, September 23. Currently, the moon is at 21 degrees of Libra as I'm making this report, and it's squaring Jupiter first thing this morning. And that shows that right off the bat for Tuesday morning, things are out of balance. Moon square Jupiter is big energy, big energetics. Things could show that it could go either way. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative with moon square Jupiter. It's kind of like a big appetite, so to speak, for something. Big mood, big needs are in place. It's a little harder to be more balanced with this Libra moon, with this square to Jupiter. Also issues of safety and security and comfort. Some people might be tired, want to retreat, might want to be in their own world and doing their own thing, especially because of this sun opposite Neptune. But we do start off with the moon in conjunct to the north node of destiny really early in the morning. And that's where the moon has, circumstances playing out for Tuesday are affecting the future from behind the scenes. Whether we see it or not, there could be ripple effects going on here. And then Mars is also in conjunct to Neptune. There's a finger of God aspect pointing towards Mars, which the moon will come into that by tomorrow. It's not perfect because Uranus is on one side of the angle there at 1.5 degrees. And so Neptune's at 0.45. So it's not a perfect finger of God, but it's still pretty tight. And that's also another level of adding to the concern of this Mars transit this next couple days and what could be taking place. There's under the surface, there's a lot of tension here building up for this week. And Scorpio does things in a covert way. It's not always what's above, visible. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of stuff below the surface that's taking place here. So finger of God just means that there's something faithful. There's something that's connected to a higher power that's going on here on some level that's below the surface. But Mars and Neptune, even Mars is showing that it's connecting to this Neptune on the global level of what's being projected and everything about Neptune, storms and water and the sun in opposition with its brightest point there. So things that are more visible on this global level, Mars, in a sense, the action, Mars rules military. There's things that are happening here that are a little bit distorted in reality, it looks like. And so making an adjustment between what's visible and what's hidden with motivation and action and what people are being inspired by. That's the other interpretation we could look at with the sun opposite Neptune as well, is for some people, it is more inspiring. This isn't a Pisces Neptune. This is an Aries Neptune. So it does play out a little differently. Aries is more of an outward sign, more of an instinctive sign that's about going after things and making things happen in initiation. So it could very well inspire people. It's just a matter of it could still show some distortions to reality and what people are motivated to do. And in some extreme cases, it can be religious or spiritual motivations in negative ways. I say negative in this case because Mars is in this position in Scorpio in a square with Pluto. But it's not always going to be that way. It's going to depend. This Neptune will depend on where Mars is throughout the zodiac, different times of the year. In this particular position, it's a little more of a challenge. All right, and then so the biggest thing is this sun making an aspect to all of the outer planets, these global connections that are happening on a world level, world developments are happening. But on a personal level, we also have this ability to see things differently. We have the sun making this aspect, a trine aspect to Pluto in Aquarius. So that's science, that's technology, that's group and community and politics and relationships and a social dynamic. This is an air grand trine. It's all about the intellectual side of life and trying to be more objective, but we're also picking up on some of these other vibes from Neptune is the problem. Plus, we're still in opposition to Saturn as well, which shows some of the more heavy, serious weight and pressure and psychological things behind the scenes that are affecting people's focus. But we still have this outlet to be looking at things differently, thinking differently with that sun trine to Uranus and Gemini. That's thinking outside the box, being able to look at things in a way that we haven't been able to look at before. So you have to be more open-minded to new possibilities. And I think with nations, there's some sort of, communications or deals or, things that are developing in that way on the global level between different nation states as well. All right. Now, again, though, there's a connection with this Libra that comes back to Virgo. There's still, Venus is behind everything and approaching that south node through the end of September and into October, of still looking at what needs to be purged and purified and cleaned up and reorganized. And it's also even talking about work. We're still in this Virgo cycle. That was the root of the cycle that we're currently in. And Virgo deals with work, service, and health life, changes to work routines, and how you live your everyday life routine. There's still this connection to kind of reorganizing that or looking at it in a different way. So for people that have changed jobs or lost their job, now that the sun is connecting to all these outer planets, there's an ability to see new potentials for the future and look at things differently from the past. A little bit of a liberating vibe there for some people with this connection to Uranus and Gemini. But you have to give it time. We're still in the early stages of this, and we're not in full consciousness about all this because this is more of the new moon side. The moon will come all the way around, and we're going to have an Aries full moon in October that will bring a lot of consciousness and awareness to the seeds that are being planted right now symbolically with this new moon. But it still comes back to a lot of things about being practical and analytical and logical with this mutual reception between Venus and Mercury. Okay, so looks like the sun opposite Neptune is a main aspect for today, with Neptune really bright. And then moon square Jupiter is peaking, the out of balance mood and feelings and circumstances going on. Try to keep that in mind, but by the time you listen to this, that aspect will have played out. And then moon is opposite Chiron as the day goes on. And that will be later this evening when that aspect is exact. So Chiron has been activated in a lot of different ways this past week or so. Talks about where people are vulnerable, injuries, accidents, wounds, healing, and now there's an opposition to that. So the mood, the circumstances, and the feelings are connected to that Chiron between self and others and how we feel. So it could bring up some issues for some people later on today, on Tuesday evening and Tuesday night. And the moon is really close to Mars, so there's likely this buildup already happening today into tomorrow with this moon Mars, this emotional intensity that's going to get very strong. So hopefully this doesn't play out as any major injuries or difficult situations with people, even starting today, tonight, into tomorrow. But also just be aware, if you're dealing with relationship, one-on-one connections with people today, tonight, tomorrow, definitely be more aware that your words and the circumstances between you and others could cause some sensitivity. So be careful of what you say. Be more mindful. I think it's helpful that Mercury and Venus are in this reception because people do want to be more thoughtful and thinking about others, seeing both sides of a situation is now a greater opportunity. Okay, so with that, then we have tonight the sun making that perfect trine to Uranus and Pluto with the grand trine, and the moon is in conjunct to Saturn. So as the night goes on, the moon here is picking up on this heavy, serious Saturn vibe behind the scenes that we have to deal with from now until next February, where there's pressure, weight, fear, just difficult things that we're trying to weigh out, be more objective about as we're picking up on that. But the mood is going to change for sure. And tonight, it's a grand trine with a lot of communication potential here. Still a lot of social energy, connections with people and groups and friends could be in focus. Where Pluto is the power. The power is within your social area of life, within the friends and the community, generally speaking. And then there could be a connection to something about news, information, media, or again, your own thoughts, your own ideas that become more and more in focus as we get deeper into tonight. I think first thing today, the biggest focus is this Neptune, which again can show some distortion, everything about Neptune on different levels. This projection energy is in place, or retreat, or tired, or in your own world, or again, being inspired by something. So very rare. All these planets have moved through this point. Mars was the first one to make that grand trine kite. Now the sun, and eventually Venus will get there. But I think by the time Venus gets there, Neptune is coming back to Pisces. So this is something that's kind of already been in play for the last few months. And again, it's talking about the world restructuring itself and what that looks like. Okay, so moving this forward, we get to Wednesday on September 24. And through the overnight hours is when we're going to see a lot of these changes, including the moon changing signs from Libra to Scorpio. The first aspect is Mars making an inconjunction to Uranus perfectly. So again, it's this finger of God aspect, something from a higher power taking place here with Mars. It's just a matter of, will it be visible or not? I think that it could be on different levels. In some cases, there could be things that we're not seeing that are below the surface that are happening privately in different situations. And then there's going to be some that are visible because of the Neptune component on the world stage that's bringing something out to be seen. But with Moon right next to Mars, or Mars and Uranus in conjunct, it's like also news and information and media or the streets. There could be a little bit of craziness here potentially through the overnight hours and through tomorrow in certain places. And then the moon changes signs. And this is where this is definitely a red flag, because the moon is also considered debilitated in Scorpio. It does not like to be here, and it definitely doesn't like to be wrapped up in a square between Mars and Pluto. And this is so rare because what's actually going to happen is the perfect conjunction at the exact time that Mars is squaring Pluto, down to the exact minute. The moon is right there with it. That is super rare. It's already rare enough to have this particular square going on from Mars and Scorpio to Pluto and Aquarius. And that is what's really the strong dynamic through the overnight hours and tomorrow on Wednesday here, September 24. The moon is also in conjunct to Neptune and Uranus, so the moon is also getting in on this finger of God aspect. So it looks very fateful and karmic and really intense now. This shows that the mood has changed to be very intense and very more deeper and private, and a lot of issues about manipulation and power and control issues are going to start building up. Scorpio deals with death, and the taboos of life. So we can't ignore that possibility that this could be showing, deeper, darker issues in some places around the world, around death or even violence. And it's really affecting people's mood and their instinctive nature of how they're emotionally responding to things that are quite difficult and intense. This is definitely like one of the biggest aspects of the week here. Now, let me just align it perfectly because I want to show you how perfect this really is. I'm going to align it by the minute. Wow, it blows my mind, the odds of this happening. So 1 degree, 27 minutes is the perfect conjunction. And look at that, Pluto's at 1 degree, 27 minutes. It doesn't get any more tight than that. That's like a perfect aspect, both by degree and minute, with 3 planets. The odds of that happening are so rare. Now, as I was saying, even this Mars square Pluto from Scorpio is very rare. We haven't seen this in our lifetime. The last time this happened was 1779 at this degree. Now, Mars in Scorpio was making a square to Pluto in Aquarius all through the last 20 years of the 1700s. Every 2 years as Mars goes through here. But the last time they were both at 1 degree in this square was 1779. I did research it and I couldn't really find too much actually on that exact day that it happened last time. But there was one incident, and I don't know if this will be relevant or not, but there was a story about in 1779 in Boston, 2 people that are kind of connected to the government and the Revolutionary War. One guy, 2 of these guys were named Benjamin actually, and one of the guys was preparing his pistols for a trip he was going to take, and he was in this other guy's house, and the gun supposedly went off accidentally and shot the other guy in the head, and he died. And so there was a big scandal about it, but the guy, it was deemed an accident. However, the guy that accidentally shot the other guy ended up marrying the other guy's wife and taking over the family. So very interesting story. So it comes back to some sort of, accidental gun, death. So I don't know if we'll see anything like that take place, but that's the only thing I could find the last time it happened. But overall, that 20 years at the end of the 1700s, it was the end of the Revolutionary War, and the Constitution was trying to be established, and there was still some uprisings and rebellions taking place at different times. Because it comes back to this Pluto in the group, in the community, in politics, which is super intense. That's being activated by Moon and Mars. But the Moon here brings it definitely more on a personal level. So there's even a bigger chance that it could manifest, but there's still always a chance that we might not see anything from it. That's the thing. You never know if there's going to be an actual manifestation, but you just know that the energetics are ripe for something to pop off here. And so this is where you should be at your most cautious of your own emotions, your own feelings, your own motives of what you're kind of feeling like doing, because again, it can show a lot of manipulation and power and control issues and some intensity, that's more like buried and under the surface, and, what people are doing privately and covertly here. But it's connecting to group and community. So you would also need to be more careful for Wednesday, even late Tuesday night and all of Wednesday. Just be more careful if you are within community or out in the streets or any kind of organization of people, gathered. The odds do go up of some sort of conflict or crisis event or acts of violence and issues of death. Now, maybe this has something to do with the storms as well, because this Neptune and Chiron are being ruled by Mars in this square. So it feels like there's something on a global or a world level in some place that's going through some conflict and crisis moment here. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't manifest, but, maybe it doesn't, because again, this is under the surface and very private as well. It could also deal with money. Scorpio is a financial sign as well, so there could be a lot more intensity about money for Wednesday in the markets, or just generally with other people's money, other people's resources, investments, or banks or something. That's just one potential. I think this is talking definitely more on, a personal aggressive level too of mood and feelings. This is very uncomfortable. This is very agitated. And so put yourself in a good place for Wednesday, and just be aware of this, and also be aware of other people's emotional reactions to things, and don't get wrapped up in any type of power struggle. And this is like on everyday level. Like if you're out and about in town, if you have somebody like piss you off out on the streets or something, or, don't get involved in it. Like definitely you're going to want to back away from this, because you might not know the reaction of the other person that could be actually quite extreme in this type of dynamic. So you just don't know how people are going to react to certain things. So definitely I wouldn't engage in any kind of conflict that impulsively, get mad at people or anything like that. And it's also, there's a chance it could deal with accidents and injuries too, because of Chiron here, which definitely deals with injuries and accidents and wounds for people. So it can play out on all kinds of different levels. But it feels a little dark to me. There's no way around that. And then with this Neptune, that's a part of it. It could even be something, it could even be a conspiracy on some level. It could be a scandal in some situations, but there's something definitely kind of extreme here that this is talking about. So very, very rare. And now we're going to start to have this every 2 years, because last time Mars was coming through here, Pluto was in Capricorn. So this is literally the first of the next couple decades that we're going to be experiencing this square every 2 years. So we need more data basically. So whatever happens during this square, that can kind of give us more insight for what could happen in the future as well. And this is a last quarter square. So it's connected to the Mars-Pluto cycle, where when Mars was conjunct Pluto, and that was back in February of 2024. So it is kind of connected to things from last year as well. So the last quarter, that can also deal with consciousness things too, and how people have to work something out, accept something that's difficult or challenging. But there's no way around it. Scorpio deals with issues of death and loss. And so you have to check your power level. Make sure you're in the right gear. Try not to push too hard for your own agenda. Other people could be pushing hard for their agenda and manipulating things from below the surface. So being conscious of this really goes a long way, in my opinion, to kind of help with it. And I think people, that are most affected are definitely people that have 1 to 2 degrees of the fixed signs. So 1 to 2 degrees of Scorpio, 1 to 2 degrees of Aquarius, Taurus, and Leo. We have had the Mars in Taurus squaring Pluto and Aquarius, but this is different. This is much more powerful. So if you do have 1 to 2 degrees of the fixed signs, or if you already have a square in your chart in early degrees of the fixed signs, then the odds of you, dealing with this go up. It doesn't mean that you will 100% have an issue, but the odds are, higher for you if you do have it. And then it's just also this tension wherever you have Aquarius in your birth chart versus Scorpio, those two areas of your life in the background have a lot of intensity there. And I did look at a few charts on the global level. I looked at the United States. I looked at some world leaders charts. And I can't look at every single chart, though, to know exactly where this can play out, because if you think about it, every city, town, state, country has a birth chart. And there's just way too many to look at. I did look at California because California does have 1 degree of Scorpio. It has Venus at 1 degree. So the odds go up for California to be wrapped up in something, but I can't guarantee it. It could be anywhere. And then China also has, I believe, 1 degree of Aquarius rising with Pluto on it. So China, California, those are 2 potentials, but it doesn't, I mean, it could literally be anywhere in the world in different places that this could really be activated, and then on personal levels. So again, this is the most difficult aspect out of the week for Wednesday. And then after that, well, yeah, then it's like that pretty much sets the tone for all day on Wednesday until Wednesday night when Venus and the moon and Venus are connecting. So moon square Pluto, it's a forced transformation. Whatever's happening, it's kind of like transformation is in the air and things are changing. The mood is intense and powerful. People are edgy. So I don't like Wednesday, to be honest. Just be extra careful. Slow down and just pay attention to what you're doing and be mindful. And I think that'll be very helpful. So as we get to Wednesday night, that's when the moon is making the final aspect of the day. Moon sextile Venus. And there's a little bit of an opening here to feel a little bit better, perhaps, but no guarantees, because Mars square Pluto will still be in effect all day Wednesday and even the next day. It's going to take a couple days to kind of separate from this intensity. So politics could be intense, group and community could be intense. There could be attacks, anything like that is possible on all these different levels. Or it could be natural disasters, in some cases, like the flooding, storms, earthquake, something that just feels like it's super intense. And hey, if something doesn't happen, if we see nothing at all, it's like I would be a little surprised, but not totally, because Scorpio's under the surface in private. But the odds are still pretty good that there's going to be something happening for Wednesday. All right. And we get past that, and then we get to Thursday. And that's the other thing, is now that the moon is in Scorpio, it's under the rulership of this Mars. So it's almost separate from all this other stuff over here for a couple days as the moon is going through Scorpio. And its debilitation, it's just a little more uncomfortable, private, deeper. But we do get to Thursday, September 25, and there's just 2 major aspects. The moon connecting to the nodes of fate, and then the moon trine Jupiter. So perhaps whatever is taking place midweek into Thursday, it's fateful. It's having a long-term effect on the future in a more of a significant way than just everyday life, based on what plays out here. But then the moon trine Jupiter has an opening. This is water. So it's like a grand trine with the nodes of fate and a wider orb. Right about there for Thursday night, late Thursday night. It'll be early morning for some people on Friday. So moon in Scorpio trine Jupiter in Cancer. It's everything about feelings and emotions that are deep and in alignment with each other, but it's definitely more private. The home, the family, safety, security, your inward life, and things that are below the surface. But it could be helpful, could give people more hope about something on an emotional level, feeling based, for a few hours on Thursday night. So those are the only main aspects. And then we get to Friday on September 26th. And the moon is at the last degrees of Scorpio. We do have a lot of different aspects here. It starts off with the moon in conjunct to Chiron. First thing in the overnight hours, early morning hours. So the feelings and the mood adjusting to this Chiron of sensitivities and vulnerabilities and how people feel about themselves on this more private level, adjusting to what's out and what's more visible versus what's hidden and deeper. But there will be a mood change as the day goes on. But before that happens, the moon will trine Saturn. So that could be helpful, the beginning of this turning point from this really powerful dynamic that was taking place midweek. So perhaps this shows there's more emotional stability, more emotional maturity, and then that leads to a change of feelings and mood as the day goes on, because the moon will then ingress Sagittarius on Friday afternoon, Friday evening, and instantly the moon picks up on a minor grand trine with Pluto and Neptune, and then we'll build the opposition with Uranus. So now circumstances in the moon are connecting to all the outer planets in this global change for the world that's building up that we're all dealing with. But the moon coming into Sagittarius, it's a change of feelings and mood to be more outward, to be more fiery and passionate. The moon here shows people generally want to be more adventurous. They want more freedom and independence. It usually is a change for the better, but not always. It's just big energy now. Like Sagittarius is a big sign. It's ruled by Jupiter. So Sagittarius tends to go big with things. And the moon here shows that feelings and mood could go big for good or bad. But there's outlets with the moon making these trines and sextiles. No matter what's happening, there's outlets to relieve some of the big energy, the pressure, the tension. It's usually more about cultural from this point forward. Beliefs and faith and truth becomes a stronger emotional need. More opinions are going to be taking place. Again, it's more of an outward sign, so people will, in alignment with Neptune, really be projecting their opinions and their beliefs very strongly about things. Sometimes this shows a stronger emotional need for adventure in terms of traveling. So if not literally traveling, people might be more interested in different topics and learning different topics and research and, learning basically. But it also changes the mood where people want to kind of like, okay, let's start to tone down this emotional intensity that was going on through mid to late week there. So moon in Sagittarius tends to show people want to have more of a sense of humor, start joking around. Even if there's intense things going on, sometimes they joke around and try to take off the edge a little bit. But definitely strong opinions and beliefs from this point forward for the next 2.5 days. And it can also show more of an indulgence for people. Emotionally, they might have a bigger craving or need for something and kind of overindulge is possible. But then the moon opposite Uranus could show there could be a lot of changes taking place for Friday. And the moon will be opposite Uranus Friday evening, Friday night. So some instability could be taking place, changes. This is now mutable, so being more flexible and adaptable to changing situations. But moon connecting to Pluto shows possible connection to a stronger emotional connection to friends or group or community or social life in different ways, either online or literally. More inspirational with the trine to Neptune. And maybe some disruptions are possible on Friday night with the opposition to Uranus. It could be more excitable. Things could look different, stepping out of routine and something different happening on Friday night than normal. All right, and then the moon is sextile the sun, so this starts to show that we're entering a part of the lunar cycle where the lights are now in harmony. The moon and the sun sextile. The inner and the outer are more cooperative and more flowing with each other, how people feel versus what people are focused on. So circumstances want to be more balanced in this particular phase after the moon gets past all these aspects with Uranus and the outer planets. So late on Friday night, the moon connecting to the sun, again, probably a bigger connection to other people, one-on-one connections with people, relationships, weighing things out, still big opinions and beliefs about things, but still trying to be more diplomatic about it, compromising, still trying to look at two different sides of something. And other people might be a little more cooperative. However, the moon is now building up a square with Venus, and that will be the following day as we get to the weekend on Saturday, September 27. The moon is still waxing through Sagittarius, and really there's just this one major aspect all day on Saturday, the moon square Venus. And that's going to come in perfectly by the morning hours, it looks like. First thing in the morning. It'll be afternoon for some people. So moon square Venus, that's where the feelings, the mood is clashing with the desires. And Venus is in charge. We know we still have this mutual reception with the final dispositors of Mercury and Venus. And the moon is under that rulership because the moon has a mutual reception as it came into Sag with Jupiter in Cancer every time the moon is in this position for the next year. So there's still also home and family connections going on, or safety, security, and comfort, or a lot about the homeland, whether your personal home and family or on a global level, people's nationalism could be really intensified. But it still leads back to, with the moon in Sag coming back to Jupiter in Cancer ruled by, well, no, I take that back. The moon is not under the rulership of the Venus and Mercury because it's in this mutual reception with Jupiter. So it kind of stays back and forth between Sag and Cancer. So this is separate over here. The Libra Virgo is separate, and the moon clashing with Venus shows, again, the mood and the feelings are at odds with desires and relationships and this more practical side of life. Virgo is all about narrowing the focus, getting down to the details, being more analytical and logical. And the moon in Sag is big energy, going over the top, looking at the future, what's above and beyond, philosophy, and that bigger energy versus the smaller energy. So they're kind of clashing. But this would generally show that maybe Saturday isn't going to be the best day for a relationship. It doesn't mean it has to be terrible. Venus moon show that there's a strong desire for love and pleasure. It's just a matter of, can people be feeling completely content and satisfied with whatever they're engaged in? It could be a little bit overindulgent and just not quite hitting the spot for some reason. That could be food, that could be the circumstances, that could be your connections with other people. And it may not play out. It won't affect every single person around the world. Keep that in mind. So if you have 9 to 10 degrees, I think you're most affected by this. 9 to 10 degrees of the mutable, Sagittarius, Pisces, Gemini, or Virgo. Then you're most likely wrapped up in a little bit of this tension. But it's not the worst. Sometimes it can show maybe a little bit of hurt feelings, or not feeling valued enough in some connections going on. Or there's two separate things going on here. They're clashing with each other in some way. So I don't think it's terrible, but try not to overdo it. Try not to keep searching or going bigger and bigger to try to be fulfilled, and just know that maybe it's just not the right day and kind of give it a rest. Again, every time Venus is going through difficult aspects, it seems to be the weekend, so it doesn't affect the markets as much. Yeah, so far looking at the SPY right now, it's still kind of flat. It's a little down, a little up, a little down. So it's just kind of flat today so far. But anyway, be careful of spending on Saturday, buying too much, or make sure the value of something is right if you buy anything on Saturday. And that's the only aspect for Saturday. So it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the day. But the moon is in Sag. It's still more of wanting to have fun, be adventurous. Strong opinions and beliefs are still very powerful for Saturday all day. And by Saturday night, the vibe is a lot different because the moon will be separated from that Venus. So there's still a potential of having a good time on Saturday if you want to. But it may have that connection. People's mood might have this stronger connection to their inner life, their private life, or home or family life because of the mutual reception. All right, and that is Saturday, 27th. Then we get to Sunday on September 28th. The moon is still waxing through Sagittarius and connecting first thing with Mercury for the first aspect. So this is where the mood and the feelings are in a better alignment with the mind and thoughts. The heart and the mind are aligned in a better way. People can be a little more objective, more balanced, seeing both sides of a situation, trying to be more compromising with the situation. Normally, Sagittarius doesn't really care about all that stuff. It does what it wants to do. It's more about the self and independence and being more blunt. It's more instinctive and just like says things instinctively, whereas maybe this connection to Mercury and Libra will help people, be a little more graceful about it. But it's only a sextile, and it won't last all day. It's just for a couple hours there. And then the moon is T-square, the nodes of fate right after that for Sunday early morning hours. So the day shows it's a fateful crossroads. Whatever happens on Sunday could have a long-term effect on the future in some sort of a more significant way than normal based on whatever is happening. Or people are at a crossroads about something. They have to make a decision about something in some cases that could affect their future. And then the moon is in conjunct to Jupiter and then trine Chiron. So adjusting between the outer life and what's going on versus the home, the family, safety, security, and comfort. Adjusting to beliefs and faith about certain things. Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. But then that trine to Chiron opens up for later on in the day, Sunday evening, Sunday night. That can help people feel more confident, feel better about themselves. Again, it's better for freedom and independence, separate from everything else. And then Mercury is in conjunct to the North Node. So any kind of communications on Sunday night could affect the future as well, or we have to adjust to the future based on how we're looking at things and weighing things out and trying to be objective and intellectual about things. Could affect our path forward. So news, information, communications, thoughts, ideas, relationships, all this could potentially have us making some sort of an adjustment for the future. Especially if you have 18 degrees in your chart, a personal planet. The personal planets are the inner planets. The generational planets are the outer planets. Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, anything past Saturn. Okay, so the last aspect will be the moon squaring Saturn. And the mood is going to start to change from this point forward now. We're picking up on some heaviness late on Sunday night, which will end up changing the mood and the circumstances for the next couple days after that. So this is where we're running into some belief challenges, some pressure, some stress, some weight. This definitely is on the global level as well, what's going on in the world. Sunday night into next week, there could be a little bit of a block, a restriction, a limitation going on, obstacles in some cases for Sunday night, really late, and it's really early for other people on Monday morning. And then we do get to Monday on September 29, and the moon is ingressed Capricorn. So a change of mood and circumstances for the next 2.5 days. And this is where the moon isn't as happy again. This is more of a serious, things get toned down, more serious, things start to slow down. And it's more about responsibility, pressure. And right off the bat, it's one of the cardinal points, the world points. And this is the beginning of building up to the first quarter moon for Monday. The crisis and action phase starts, as soon as we wake up on Monday. And now the circumstances are being ruled by Saturn. But now the moon is wrapped up in the main, alignments that come back to Mercury and Venus, mutual reception again. But right off the bat, the moon is squaring Neptune, so it could, kind of be this feeling of a little bit of uncertainty about something, uncertainty, confusions, doubts, some blind spots, some need to retreat, and or things aren't very clear for some reason right in the beginning of this, and it's really early in the morning on Monday, so that'll be gone by the time most people are waking up and the day is moving on. It won't be all day. And then the moon is in conjunct to Uranus, also adjusting to some changes energetically. But the moon here, it just talks for the next couple of days. It's about goals, ambitions, work, your future. What do you need to do? It's definitely, more of a serious vibe in the air, more of a maturity and having to work and take care of business. On the global level, it deals with government, more government things happening here in a serious way. And then the moon is sextile Mars, and then it squares the sun. So there's a moment here as the day goes on Monday with that sextile that shows a connection to be more inspired or have more power, determination, resourcefulness to get the job done or deal with important matters. But that's only for a few hours, and then the moon runs into that square with the sun, which is the first quarter moon, the crisis in action. It's like, how can we start moving forward? It comes back to those seeds that are being planted for this solar eclipse cycle for the future. Whatever those are, for some people, they're unconscious about it. Other people might have more of an intention, but you have to remember during eclipse season, there's a higher power that kind of guides things more than people's own intentions. But this is the point where people are challenged, that how they feel, their inner world versus what they're focused on. So this could be business relationships, professional relationships challenged, work is challenged a little bit versus what we're focused on, the outer and the inner. And it comes back to, again, what do we need to do to move things forward? There might be obstacles and challenges. People might not be as cooperative for some reason and making life more challenging in this moment on Monday. And this is definitely later on Monday. It could be all day, but it's peaking here in the evening and Monday night. But it's like how people are feeling. They might be trying to figure out how can they move forward with goals, ambitions, their future, what they need to do, the responsibilities they have that they need to take care of, how to start moving forward in these new ways with this new focus now. And that's the last aspect, is the first quarter moon. The moon is half full. So that's what I have for you, folks. I hope that's been helpful. Appreciate you watching. I appreciate the comments. There's a lot of people that never commented before that were making comments. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the people that normally comment on my videos as well. So thank you. And I wish you a great week ahead. Take good care.